Hello and welcome to Makercast number 18. I've got some people here in the backstage area. I'm just going to bring them on. We've got Jon Oxer from Superhouse TV. We've got Dave Darko off of Dave Darko. We've got Clem, who's Mayor Makes. And we've got bitluni, who's filming on a potato. And James Sharman is joining us as well. So it's lovely to have you all here. I can see there's loads of people in the chat already, so I'm not going to go through you all. There's lots of people there. Lots of comments already coming through. So hello, everyone. I haven't prepared a quiz. I'm sorry.
No!
That's fine.
Ordinarily, there might be some kind of a quiz, but this time I didn't bother because I was really, really busy at work yesterday. So I had to work on a Saturday, which was a real pain. But that's all over now, and I'm feeling much better about it. So I'm looking forward to hearing about everything that everyone in the stream has done. But also, if you've got anything that you're making in the chat, we'd love to hear about it as well. And I'll bring any comments up on screen. So although I've said your names out loud already, we are going to do introductions. So I'm going to start in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen and go up. So that means you, Clem, please introduce yourself to everybody.
Oh, yeah. Hello, I'm Clem, maybe known as Mayor Makes. I'm also one of the hosts of Element 14 Presents, and I do mostly electronic things. And this time I have pretty much nothing to show because I was part in an online hackathon. And I would like to talk about that, if that's okay.
Cool. Thanks, Clem. Absolutely, it's okay. Looney.
Hello.
Look at you.
Quick
so
before
I'm
he drops out.
bitluni from bitluni's lab, and my setup broke today. I tried for an hour, and now I'm streaming from my mobile phone with my 2 gigs over LTE that I have left. So let's start all over again. So you know probably bitluni's lab. If not, subscribe to my channel. I do a lot of LED stuff, and I even brought stuff with me this time. Even though the LED wall isn't behind me, I tried to move it in this room, but it almost tipped over again, so I left it in the other room.
Wonderful. Well, welcome back to 30 frames a second, everyone. Next up, we've got James Sharman. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm James Sharman. Most people know me for my CPU build project, which I'll give you a bit of an update on in a while. I also do other stuff, but nobody seems to care about that. So yeah, this insane project that has chosen to occupy 4 times more time than I ever imagined it would is pretty much the bulk of my channel.
Nice, thanks, James. Don't know if everyone noticed there, but James has got 2 bottles of whiskey up there on the mantelpiece. Next up, Dave Darko. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah. So hi, I'm Dave. I design some PCBs, try to make them look fancy and nice, and sometimes 3D print things around it. And sometimes I do that for Element 14 Presents. Subscribe to their channel.
Ooh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's
do
fine.
what you want.
And next up, we've got Jon off of Superhouse TV. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Jon Oxer. My YouTube channel is Superhouse TV, which is mostly about home automation and assistive tech sort of stuff. I also have a business called Freetronics, which does electronics manufacturing, and I do contracting for things like industrial device control, assistive tech work, crossing over a little bit into the medical field recently as well.
Wonderful. Thanks, John. So I haven't seen any. Oh, look, Becky Stern's in the comments there. Adam Bryant. Hiya. So going to go straight back to the first person we started with. And I'm going to ask you, you wanted to talk about a hackathon, right? Is that right, Clem?
That's right, because all the projects that I did this week are not published yet, so I can't talk about them really. But I witnessed a pretty... Don't spoil anything. So this or last week,
I said
I've
it's
been
monthly.
in
You
an
don't
online
have to go back
hackathon
one
for the
week.
first time. I do a bit more projects than you think. So okay, so I've been into an online hackathon this time, and that was pretty different because all the times beforehand I was only in like hands-on things where people meet up in person and we try to build stuff, and that's pretty difficult if you can't see each other in person and you have to communicate over the internet and nothing else. We did that in Zoom calls and Meet calls and whatever stuff, but finally we managed to do something with it. And as you can imagine, most of the projects were just people talking a lot and formulating and using a ton of online tools to get stuff done. But it was a better experience than I thought. So in the beginning, I was very hesitant that we can actually build something. But we had a system. So the whole hackathon was part of Industry Meets Makers, which is an initiative that brings together industry corporations like big corps and makers and startups, and they work together on stuff. And they make this hackathon every year. And usually it's in person, and this time it's online because of, that fancy virus everybody loves. Why is bitluni so laughing all the time? That's crazy. It throws me completely off. Stop laughing.
I'm reading the chat, sorry.
Okay. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't read comments. So
I'm listening.
We tried to do something usable, and we had a system in place that worked pretty good, and that may lead to more online hackathon stuff. So we prepared makerspaces all around that we could get to join in. So we had participants mostly from Austria. We had some German participants and a team from France. So it got pretty international. And what we did, we contacted makerspaces that we know, and they all opened up. So if you have an idea and you want to build something physical, you can just pack your things, go there to the makerspace, build it there, and send over the data and whatever you would need. So you can access all the spaces, whatever is in your area. And that worked pretty good. In our case, I made a little 3D printed design, so we had something to show to see how big the thing will be that we're building. And and now it's in the stage of getting shown to some people that may have some money, so we can build that stuff for real. And it may the goal was to make this ready for a scientific project. And if we can prove all the theories that we made up in the hackathon, and then it may get to a study and then to a product that should hopefully be marketable. And that's basically it. And bitluni is still laughing.
Question.
Well, totally ignore him. That's really fascinating. Can you tell us about the tools that you used to do the sort of a distanced hackathon?
Yeah, so the communication worked over Zoom, which I hate for obvious reasons. We used Google Meet chats to have breakout sessions from that for specialized teams, like groups of 3 that would focus on one does only CAD drawing and the other group does only hardware. And I also, while I was designing stuff and writing up some code, I streamed that so the others could watch if they wanted and could chime in if they see some errors, which of course happened. And then we used a tool that I really like now called Miro.com, so Miro, which is like a mind map tool that has a ton of sticky notes on there, and people can write their comments and their ideas and resort them. That was really great for brainstorming and then getting all the ideas in a shape that you could actually use them. So that worked surprisingly good.
That we're getting some super chat spam in the chat, although very kindly. So Mark Olson donated. I don't know what SEK means, but it looks
Swedish
like
crowns.
I think it's divided by 10, and then you get the euros.
Oh right. That's very kind.
We not even got 10 euros.
So, but now I'm going to have to split that with all of you. I deliberately turned off.
How do I feel that on my
stream?
Just disinfect.
It's for ale. It's for ale.
For ale, of course. Johnny's got in on the SEK wagon as well. He's sending some whiskey. God.
Oh yeah, I seen the chat. Somebody asked about the hackability of Zoom, and we had somebody Zoom bombing it during the hackathon. So we had some people coming in that were not invited. Yeah, so somebody guessed the code for the meeting because it had no password to make login easier for all the participants. There were like 50 people that had to log in, so they scrapped the password and only used password protected calls for everything else and not for a main stage, so to speak. So we had Zoom bombing. That's a thing.
So what you've used all these tools. What did you find was the biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge is to get all the people working, like for the stream. It's not always easy because systems break and you need to use your cell phone with potato vision to be on the stream. We had that a ton of times, and it's apparently pretty difficult to teach people that they should use headphones on things like this. So a lot of you can mute everybody, have only one speaking, you get terrible reverb or echo, and that guy still thinks he's not a problem. So can be a problem. And also we're on the same page. A lot of people thought that.
Well, recently you cloned yourself, so I might be your clone.
Yeah, and in August I also have an actual new clone with me. So, that's another thing. I'm having an intern.
There was one at Maker Faire as well.
Oh yeah, there was one Maker Faire clone, and yeah, I'm having an intern in August, so that should help me. And that's basically like I'm cloning myself. At least I hope.
Brilliant. Has anyone got any questions for Clem?
Yes.
Oh, the question.
Can I ask a question?
Sorry, Dave. No, yeah, of course you can. Of course you can.
What's the project about? Did you say that, or was it just you're not allowed to say it, and you just told us what things you used to make it happen?
Oh no, I totally forgot that. So it's basically it will be on the homepage in a few days. So basically, it's meant to have a social, not social distancing tool, but a tool to control or to entice people to keep their distance on events. So apart from there are already commercial devices that just beep or vibrate when you get too close to each other and you have to wear a button that nobody wants to have. So it's basically a thing that's inside the badge that you would get on every conference. It measures the distance, it alarms, but the aspect that we wanted to build is not doing like a warning device, but have something that you could use between pandemics for events and conferences. So give it a gamification aspect or something that you could do interactively with it, but it also monitors the spacing, and you could use the data afterwards to see if like safety ways work, if people can pass through, or if somebody like used doors that they shouldn't use, or just keep to see if they kept their distance, and when they give the badge back, like the points get scored to your email address, and you can buy something for that points or get some goodies. So it's like a combination of enticing people to keep their distance and also give them something in reward, and combine that with possible marketing stuff so that it's commercially viable in a sense. And the goal of the project was to formulate stuff to get this ready for like a research project where a university, or a research facility to be exact, it's somehow connected with a university, does research about the psychological effects of such devices, and if they work and they can change behavior over a longer period of time. So that's the actual project. And we tried to get that
one of these
down
ones you weren't
to...
allowed to talk about.
Sorry?
I thought you just weren't allowed to talk about it. That's really fascinating.
No, I just forget it. And we tried to get it down, like hardware-wise, to make it as cheap as possible. So, yeah, we have a BOM of about, I think, just under 10 euros. But that should go down if you buy in bulk. And yeah, you know the deal. If you buy 10 of a thing, everything's expensive. If you buy 20,000, then all of a sudden everything's cheap.
But also 100 is more expensive than 10, which is weird. Just saying.
No, just per unit. That's just
There's this weird.
If I buy
you can buy a 10
pack.
pack. Yeah, if you buy a 10 pack on eBay, it's cheaper than when you buy 100 pieces of the same device on Mauser, for example, or any other brand.
It can be. I had I was searching for ESP32s, and you can get them from a distributor with if you have all the company stuff, and for pretty cheap, I think 2 to 3 euros. So that was the cheapest I got, and also the knockoffs weren't that much cheaper, but you get all the certification stuff and for that. But the first thing that they want is all your contact information and all your company data, so they can see that you're a genuine electronics manufacturer, and then they give you a quotation that's better. You just first have to prove that you don't do any shenanigans with it. And we had an engineer in the team, a real engineer, not a jerk like me. So, and he got the quotation for us. So they said, okay, that's a real engineering firm. They do that stuff.
Interesting. I didn't know that kind of thing happened. I'd be fascinated to hear what comes out of that research that you talked about with the university about would it change people's behaviors. Because I think for a long time they've had devices in cars, haven't they, to monitor your speed, and it gives you lower insurance if you're not breaking the law and stuff.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that's, but a lot of these things have no proven record if they really impact your behavior over the long term, or it's just you think about, oh, it's getting cheaper if I do that, and after 2 weeks you have no memory of that. So they hope to have a transparent, provable data that backs the claims or leads us to a product that might work a lot better than just having something that beeps when you go near people.
Oh, just rats in a maze. Bitluni, going to come on to you.
Okay. I wasn't on the last MakerCast. The last one was 2 months ago, but I didn't do many projects. You might have seen my latest LED wall, ping-pong LED wall. And the project before that was some power supply stuff for that. Yeah, that's well received, as always with this LED stuff. And I thought I would, since it's like the huge wall, I can't show it since it's not here. It's made from huge PCBs that were manufactured by PCBWay, and it's like really modular. And what I didn't show yet is that you probably can imagine that these panels, which are 32 centimeters in like X and Y, you can like there are like bus lines on the edges, and you can route the signals for the pixels. So these are the individual addressable pixels. You can route using this bus lines, so you can like even construct walls or ceiling lights that have gaps or like a window, or as like L-shaped or S-shaped even, and you can like map the wall on like a frame buffer. And that was the idea behind the latest design of my LED wall. Yeah, people want to buy the panels or make them themselves, and I'm not prepared for that, so that will take a while. But meanwhile, I thought, okay, I will, since it's quite difficult to replicate such a huge project, and it's quite expensive as well. I thought maybe to make something that people can easily, like beginners even, can easily replicate at home, and it's also out of ping pong balls and stuff like that. So usually you have. Do I have it?
Let me just
here?
load
No.
up the bitluni PowerPoint here. I'm gonna have to go full screen in the PowerPoint presentation. Off you go,
Okay.
Looney.
You're pretty mobile, right? So good. Never mind.
Yeah, I could take it, but the setup is here that it's okay. Maybe. Sorry. Okay, I'm back. So what I grabbed are these. You probably know the LED strips, and you can usually get these LED strips with a specific density, and these are 32 LEDs per meter. So they're like 33 millimeters apart, and usually the ping pong balls are 37. The ones that I'm using, 37 millimeters in diameter. So if you want to make a simple LED product with ping pong balls, they won't fit next to each other if you glue this on. But then I thought, okay, what if we have a curvature and you glue them like in a spiral around a 3D printed object or something? So this is like a super simple lamp. You can put it easily together, and with an off-the-shelf parts, and you can print this, or you can even like make a tube out of cardboard and glue the strip on. And this is like the small, simple one, and this is the one that I completed today. Turn off the lights, or a little bit dimmer. So this is like a tube this is the biggest that fit in my 3D printer. So this is 3D printed, and so a spoiler alert, the video isn't out yet, but yeah, I'm working on it. I finished that one today and filmed everything. So that's actually what I'm working on, a project that is really easy, replicable, and you can even do it with like any microcontroller that is capable of NeoPixels and WLED or any like home automation stuff. But I'm not like final on that video right now. So yeah, that will come like within 1 week, hopefully. Yeah, and it's easily replicable. So that's like a super simple project that I want to follow up, so anyone can have a little bit of loony ping pong thingies at home.
I mean, it probably won't fit in with my aesthetic, but I do like it. Are they are they still ping pong balls with just a
Yeah.
cutout?
No, that are completely glued on. Maybe you can see it completely glued on the LEDs. So actually, it's like not recommended to touch these LEDs here. So, but they are really not sensitive. I glued like a hot glue with hot glue. I put a blob like on my LED wall video. I put a blob on the surface mount LED and simply put the ball on. One problem with doing this is that these cheap ass ping pong balls, they tend to melt and pop. So they heat up, and if the hot glue is too hot, and then they pop, and it's like splatter of hot glue everywhere. So actually you have like to put this on the LED and wait for a few seconds so it cools down a bit, and then put the ping pong ball on. But after that, it's quite like, it's okay. You can touch it even, and they don't fall off or anything.
Well, it's good to know that your balls don't fall off. Thank you very much, bitluni. Does anybody have any questions?
But I'm just jealous on the size of that LED wall. I don't have the space to do projects like that, let alone the sponsorship backing to make them. It was really cool.
Yeah, I started with a 300 LED one, and then increased every time. So you can probably do it as well at some point. I don't know. The first one it wasn't like very expensive. It was like, it's going crazy since then. So, but every time I did one, I promised it's the last one.
Now, Looney, I have a question. Sorry if this is something you probably already talk about on your videos, but how do you go about setting up the visualizations for these? You can address the LEDs individually, but then how do you design from the controller side what sort of patterns and things it's going to do?
Yeah, that's like software is like, I didn't do much there. I have like in my library, I have like in ESP32 library implementation for a graphics interface there. So you can draw like on a frame buffer, and you have to provide a mapping function. So it will map XY to LED number. And that's only, you have to fill it in. So it's not like convenient for users to like graphically map it like on WLED or anything. So there are better tools to do this. What I do currently is only like you can use the library and simply fill in the mapping function, and then you can map any shape of your wall, your personal implementation on that.
I honestly wouldn't know where to start with any of that. It's so complex. Right, anybody else? I haven't seen too many questions in the chat unless I've missed them all. I did wonder whether you were actually on some new version of your LED wall. And what we're seeing now is you filming that LED wall, all of those pixels. It's a mega 1080p screen that you've got on the corner.
I think the ESP32 camera has a better quality than this.
Yeah.
Just forgot we've got stickers now.
Stickers.
Well, I hope.
Oh, wow.
I now have bumper stickers. Just forgot to show those. Nice. If somebody wants some, hit me up.
And the
Show us the
colorway.
arrow.
So
And he's gone. Okay, James Sharman, you're up next.
That's it for 26 gigabyte.
Okay, so I mean, most people, or well, at least some people on here will know me from the CPU build I've been doing. I'm going to shut my camera down for a second so I don't make anyone motion sickness, and point the camera at it.
The suspense.
this is really difficult for me because I'm used to looking at it from a very different angle. It's 180 degrees from where it normally is. So this is a microprocessor I've been building. It's pipelined, and it's a far bigger project than I thought I was getting myself into when I started. So it's registers over here, pipeline here, ALU here. When I showed this last on MakerCast, there was less PCBs, and I was having some glitchy errors with it because if you see, there's a nice big green PCB behind this, which is replacing an abominable mess of strip board that used to be interconnecting everything. So this demo program I'm running is the biggest thing I've written for it so far. So this is an implementation of the sieve of Eratosthenes. So it's generating prime numbers. It will go all the way up to what will fit in 16 bits.
Oh, hang on a minute. There we go. Sorry, I forgot what button I'm pressing.
So yeah, I mean, that's been occupying the bulk of my time. I'm currently working on this little side project for it, which is an enhanced version of the clock and reset. Although I think most of my regular viewers realize I'm kind of spreading it out a little bit while I do loads of PCB design.
I am really impressed by your progress with this. I was having a chat with you the other day on Discord, and you said that you didn't really do any electronics before you basically started attempting this, which is absolutely insane. That you would just go, right, I'm going to build a computer now. That's it. I'm just going to create myself a processor. Like, that is kind of nuts.
Yeah. Well, that Intel stuff. Who needs to make my own?
I mean, it's at the moment it runs at about. I think I've had it up to about 150 kilohertz. So I don't think it's going to be replacing my main PC just yet. I get multiple instructions in flight, so. I reckon if I can get it up to about 1.3 megahertz, then I can claim 1 MIPS, and I'll be pretty pleased with that. But next stages on here, I'm planning out a sound card and a graphical display. So I want to get games running on it.
That's so cool.
My most recent video was actually these buttons. So these are actually peripherals for the Xbox accessibility controller or adaptive controller. So this is like a little project Microsoft did to make games and games consoles more accessible to disabled people. So you basically have a base controller and then a whole bunch of 3.5mm jacks, which are all the different buttons and controls. And so you buy and plug in whatever is appropriate for that particular person, for that particular use. So it's quite a clever thing. We got a couple of these lying around at the office because I develop games for a living. And so we use them to make sure our games can be configured in an appropriate way for these. But the button peripherals, economies of scale, they're pretty expensive. So these are 3D printed ones that are pretty effective. I'm hoping to improve them a little bit at some point.
So that accessibility thing is, I heard about it, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic that Xbox had sunk a bunch of, well, Microsoft had sunk a bunch of money into creating something which absolutely is not going to give them a return on investment. It's for a very small proportion of people with a small range probably of disabilities that mean that they can't use a normal controller, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's also really cool for people if they want to hack stuff and throw some 3.5mm jacks in there. But
yeah, I mean, it's the whole kind of community that make their own arcade cabinets and stuff like that love it as well. Because previously they were opening up game controllers and wiring stuff in, but Microsoft got everyone else involved, so you can actually plug one into a PlayStation and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, for people in the audience who haven't seen that, what looks like a comically large, like Nintendo controller or something, can you just sort of explain like what it is, why people have it?
Well, I don't mean to self-promote, but I've got a link to, on my video for this, I've got a link back to the Microsoft announcement trailer. And so there's a few charities around that deal with gaming accessibility. A classic Xbox or PlayStation controller, it will fit in your hand really well, and it's comfortable, it's easy to push buttons. But if you've got people with physical disabilities who just don't have that level of physical dexterity, it can make a big difference. So the base of this controller is literally just two giant buttons. These aren't direction pads or anything. But for people who can't have any interaction with games with the classic controllers, there are experiences where they can just use these giant buttons and do stuff. Or people construct custom joysticks and all of this kind of stuff that exactly suit people, hand grips, foot pedals. And you can go on YouTube actually and find people having amazing gaming experiences with physical capability a lot less than you or I.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. When I first saw it, I think I saw someone modifying one on one of the Adafruit streams. I can't even remember what that's called now. Show and Tell. They were messing about with it a couple of years ago or something. I read about it and thought, this is like the coolest thing I think Microsoft has ever done. So yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. Has anyone got any questions for Jay? Actually, I've got a quick question.
I was quite pleased with this because it's just 3 parts and the whole thing's held together by 2 screws. So it's I like to set myself challenges when I'm making 3D printed stuff.
That's cool.
I've just got to say that the work you did on that button is very impressive. I've had to do that sort of thing myself. This is a similar one that was designed by a friend of mine. And it's a problem that sounds really, really simple. And when you try to design it, it's surprisingly hard to make something that's not going to bind up, that's got the right pressure to activate it, it doesn't fall apart. So yeah, I think you did a great job on the design of that.
The trick was pretty much just to leave everything to the underlying micro switch. So it's basically the motion of the button is just the depression of the micro switch, and that holds the button up.
Yep.
I did come up with a few crazy ideas involving wires and parallelograms like you get in a space bar of a keyboard.
Yes.
But it actually turned out to just, it would have worked, but you'd have ended up with something that would take you an hour to assemble after 3D printing all the tiny little bits and bending wires. And that's not what you want for the job.
Yeah, it just makes it worse. You can end up with something that's going to bind up as well, because if you push it on one side, the enclosure can jam.
There are a few people in chat mentioning Ben Heck has quite a few videos where he does some customization for people with disabilities.
Cool.
We also had one in the pipeline, but sadly we couldn't contact that person. So I wanted to build something for someone, for a photographer, particularly that has just his left hand, I think. But we couldn't get a follow-up on that person that needs it, sadly.
Bitluni. Do you know why he went offline? I'll tell you right now. He just wanted to find a nice background to go and sit in front of. That's it, isn't it? Hang on,
I lost my...
We all watched you, when James was on the screen, we all watched you going like this. Just moving around.
No, I had to go up since I lost my LTE connection, and now I have Wi-Fi, and I went in a room, but then the lamp was behind me and the light was bad, so sorry.
It does look better. You're right. Okay, I'll forgive you. That's a very interesting plant in the background.
Plant.
What is that?
I don't know if it's a lamp.
Lamp. Oh, I see. It was a bit smooth looking for a plant. Anyway, sorry. James, I have a question about, you've ruined the order now as well, Bitluni. James was all the way over there. That's how I knew who was next. I've got a question about the computer. What do you want what do you want it to become? What's the end game?
I said quite near the beginning that what I wanted from this was I wanted to be able to develop a game for it. That's going to be the underline. I have made a computer. I mean, the processor or the core of the processor is complete now. I'm converting the breadboards over to PCBs, but I'm Turing complete. I can do all the functions of an 8-bit processor with a few extra modern bells and whistles on it. But at the moment, I've just got this little LCD output, and I don't think I've ever publicly said this, but the LCD screen is actually the cap on my clock rate at the moment, because I haven't got any moderation of the data rate I feed at it. So I can actually change some components around and run at a clock rate, which means the display no longer works, but then downclock it again and it starts updating the screen. So I need a better display, or I need to implement the weights for the screen.
Will you implement like a graphics unit where you can use it like with the TV or a screen and play Pong?
But if you paid attention to one of my earlier mailbag videos, one thing I did pull out and label as a possible spoiler was a 25.175 megahertz crystal, just the pixel rate for VGA.
Cool.
I did mention to you in Discord that I want you to basically make a computer that was out of war games. I want it to sound exactly like that. I want it to be able to talk, and I want all the typing to be like da, 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 whenever the characters come on screen. I know that's a big ask. I'm hoping that you can make that. Can you make global thermonuclear war?
Interestingly enough, I kind of started writing a text mode interface for the conversation Joshua has with David Lightman when he first connects. But that was for a whole different purpose.
I've got such fond memories of that film. It really opened my eyes to, actually, I mean, it didn't really. I learned nothing about computing from that film, but I did think, oh my God, I love computers when I watched that film.
Yeah, but it did make us think computers were cool.
Yeah, it did, really did. Okay, thank you very much, James. We're going to move on now.
One more piece of making.
Okay.
In this lockdown,
So there's a cat. Hang on a minute.
I started some baking, so I've got some cake, and you don't.
Oh, harsh. Also, you've got a cat, and no one else here does.
That's true.
The cat has contributed to my CPU project on several occasions. I've got a small collection of DuPont cables that have been chewed.
I can imagine.
There was this kind of mystery for a while that certain things just stopped working overnight, and I would come back, and then I discovered the little bits of plastic where the cables were had been chewed down on. It's quite annoying.
I love it.
This is why the background for my CPU is now a piece of wood, and it's not flat on the desk, so I can put it out of reach.
You could just close the door as well. Or does the cat really like to be in that room?
This is when I'm at home and not sleeping. This is where I spend most of my time. I got a cat flap in my office door, so otherwise she'd be sat outside the door whining. And in the winter, you need the door shut to be able to keep it warm.
Right. If no one's got any questions, I'm going to move on to Dave. Dave Darko, live.
Nobody has a question, so I can start now. Okay.
Go.
You said if nobody has a question, then Dave can start, and I was waiting for someone to have a question. Maybe
no one has a question. It was rhetorical.
I have a question. Can you please start? Thank you.
Just go.
Yes,
Dave.
I can. Okay, so why are we here? Yeah, so I had a week off, like a week ago or so, and I thought it would be a good idea to start a list and see how many projects I want to work on and how many projects I have on my list that I want to work on and whatsoever. And I tweeted about it and said I had 99 projects, but weeks of holidays won. It wasn't that many, but it was closer to 99 than to 1, because I think I got to 64 projects in total, maybe more. Yeah. So what I then did was starting with the smaller stuff, where it was just, well, you start a project by soldering on pin headers. I forgot that this thing is on, and you couldn't have. Never mind. Sorry. I'm going to mute this. Don't tweet at me. Now it's done.
It's
Anyways.
Darko.
Already fixed. You might hear it humming on my table now. But anyways, send tweets. Yeah. So what I sorted on was there's the camera. There's like 3 cameras pointing at me right now. This little guy. So I can use.
This is me. This is me.
Yeah, I thought maybe I just use the projects that that people know here. So yeah. So one of my project ideas was I want to have like a minimal setup, a cheap motor driver and the ESP cam, and then have something that can drive along and has a camera on, and then maybe you can add some more of those robots, and because they're cheap, you can have a little army of robots and cameras that are web connected. Which is not a spoiler.
About a specific project that we.
No, you're making it the project that we don't want to talk about. I was just teasing a robot army, but yeah, no. So.
That's so cool. I will clone it. I will steal your project and release it tomorrow.
Which is pretty nice, because then I don't have to do the work. This is actually why I bring my unfinished projects to this stream. I also have.
I can even reuse like an old small robot that I printed or made like for a controller, a Super Nintendo controller back then, and simply put the. It was even working on the ESP32, I think.
So there's one other YouTuber that you might have to talk with before you do that, because we did. But anyway.
What?
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 What's his name? We kind of spoke about him on.
Oh, Homo Faciens, Norbert.
Right.
Right. Norbert Hans from Homo Faciens.
So he has this whole robot arena thing going, and you can control robots by clicking something, and then it moves forward for a second or 4.
Is it called a Robot Spatium or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Homo Spatium.
Right. So this is pretty cool, but I thought like having these huge robots, and I have so many bigger projects that don't really fit in anything. Like, take a look. Where should I put stuff? So I want to make smaller projects, and I thought it would be cool to have some smaller robots. And
okay, so you want a mini version?
Yes.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
Like
now I'm not angry
or...
anymore because I've already switched to a big one.
See,
I want to explore lost places with that,
which is pretty cool. But I want to have have a room, and then there are like 10 robots, and it doesn't feel crowded. And the parts should be not more than 10 euros, which is kind of tricky.
That's cool.
That's tricky.
But yeah, like 10 or 20 bucks. But then you have, you have a Wi-Fi connected camera already. You need 2 servos, and then you have something that can move forward and backwards. You can modify the servos. Yeah.
May I suggest you might want to try the camera itself is quite cheap. It's like $2 or something. And you can probably use the camera with the ESP32S2 So and make a board with that camera. The connectors are also not very expensive. So just make your own board and maybe like something to mount the servos on and the battery. So you can probably make it for $10 in total if you go like with super cheap components.
And the PCB can be the chassis as well.
I don't really have to. That's a good point, because otherwise I would 3D print something. But when you can mount servos to the PCB, then that's a point for making your own PCB.
You can just clamp them in or something.
Yeah, but otherwise I can imagine that it's pretty tough to solder this connector on. So I'm not sure if I really
just order them mounted. Just you can from any manufacturer these PCB assembly just
put the camera on.
Yeah, and then you can simply the camera, you clamp it in and it's ready.
You mean do the assembly by the PCB manufacturer.
Or you can take one of these OV cameras that are with these DuPont connectors. Mm-hmm. They're super, so you need just like a breadboard or something. I've made a They're supported by the.
Is there better support for this one instead of the other one? Or is it the same?
I think it's very generic. The driver on the ESP32 library, you can simply select the type, or it's even read over I2C. I'm not sure about that, but it should be easy to use the bigger ones with the DuPont connectors as well, and they are really cheap.
Okay.
So robot army incoming.
Yeah.
I just got to say, I love the idea that you're going really small with this, because so many people build, robots that are maybe bench size, but they're not really hand size. And the idea of building something that is that scale, I think, is really intriguing.
I think so too.
But we're slightly less worried about a robot takeover as well when they're that size.
Yeah, as long as you can go robot stamping.
It's kind of like that thing, a horse-sized duck or a lot of duck-sized horses. Like, which one would you hate the most?
What? A duck-sized horse or a horse-sized duck?
Yeah, if you had one horse-sized duck, so a duck the size of a horse, or
I think
that would be awesome.
The easiest, because the scale won't work. It's it's not going to be able to stand on its own legs.
But imagine if it could. It would be terrifying, wouldn't it?
It would be, and it would be a vessel that should swim.
I'm still more terrified of horses than.
But not for tiny horses.
Honest. I mean, ducks can really move their head quickly, so they can be.
It might actually have been the other way around. It might be a horse the size of a duck, or
that would be cute.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember, but it's something about ducks and horses. Anyway, I'm sure someone in the chat will remember.
Well, since you're doing these little robots, and Looney, that way, you're doing the ping pong balls. You need to combine them and have little ping pong ball robots that can move around.
Yeah, that would be a rip-off.
Wall.
Well,
that has already
kind of
been done.
Sphero. That's a Sphero.
I had a Sphero. I gave it to.
Not that small.
Carl Buchecha did that. He made a little robot that folds up into a ping pong ball.
Buya.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce these names. Sorry.
It's a 50% chance that I messed it up as well. But I've met him in real life at the SuperCon 2 years ago. So it was pretty cool. He was my non-American friend and the Spanish guy as well. So back then I didn't have bitluni with me.
Can you describe more what this robot's going to be, or is it hush hush?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was just brainstorming. I was just brainstorming, and Clem was like, I'm like, what?
Speak.
So yeah, that's basically it. I just want to have web controllable small little robots that you can drive around from a web interface, and I'm not sure how I really will manage that. Maybe I use my computer to collect all the streams from the camera first and then prepare something with OBS and then send it out so everyone can control it. I'm not sure how the input is. Like it wouldn't be one-to-one, so you probably have to send out a command to drive forward, and then it drives forward for a bit. That's what Robo Sapiens is doing. Yeah. So maybe you can also add sensors to the robot, and then you can interact with something. So you can actually control it and then say, open door, and then you try to go through the door. Sorry?
They have to control the Mars rovers like that because the latency is too high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a project on one of my lists since I think 3 years already, and it's also with small robots that have like 2 wheels, and I even sourced all the parts for this. I wanted to use like the Polulu drivers and like the super small stepper motors that you can get off AliExpress. And what I did back then is write an evolutionary simulation of these robots, and they harvest light. So the idea was the evolution that runs like within 1 minute, you have like intelligent artificial life that hunts like light spots on the screen. And what I wanted to do is, since I had like 100 or 1,000 individuals that were hunting and eating off that light spots on the screen, I thought if I of a project, if I can transfer the resulting genetics from this simulation to an actual robot, and if it would hunt light with like a super simple light sensor, hunt light if you have it like in a small space like that. So that reminds me of that project that I never proceeded with. I have all the components as always with all the projects, but it's quite similar, and I'm looking forward to your solution.
This
and
is how
maybe
you get
Bitluni, are you basically talking about beambots?
I don't know. Beambots.
Okay, so
nothing.
Okay, one of my first projects that I started, beambots are basically analog circuits, little robots that hunt light, for example, or whatever. You use a little solar cell, so when they get to the light source, they also recharge, and that makes them hunt the light and keeping alive as long as they have enough light. And if you can do a different one that hates light and always tries to avoid it, so that you can hunt around with a flashlight. So that's basically only an analog circuit, and you can do that in very simple code. There's a neural network project on the Make channel about that. So is that the behavior you're talking about, or do you mean something different?
It's exactly that. It's, if you can imagine, it's like the simplest form of life. It's just you have a resource, a simple resource, and a simple sensor to find that resource, and you want like to have an evolution of life. So that was my idea. Is I don't want to write a code for that. So the code writes itself.
But you want the evolutionary factor, so it gets better over time.
So I want the first aspect of that project would be like if it's possible to simulate or generate to like do like 1,000 generations of that simulation on the computer and then transfer the code, since it's like I simulated it down. I could the genetics. It's like simple code with it's 16 instructions or something, I think 32 opcodes were sufficient, or 32 bytes were sufficient for an actual life form to hunt the light. So it was like super limited size, and my interest was, can I rebuild like a small robot that can run off this code that was generated on or calculated on the computer, and if it could like train itself even better on from this starting point in the real life. So that's why I would need like super many boids, and they have to be cheap as well, like Dave Darko's boids. So and small, of course, since you have only limited space.
That's one hell of a project.
Good
I don't
I'd
know
love
if
to see that. I'd love to build that.
yeah.
It's awesome.
Dave is gonna make that even with cameras now, and we can maybe upload the code and test it there.
So my
Let's
idea
just
is
make all robot platforms for such crazy stuff and then exchange the codes.
I mean, I kind of want to have a little arena, like maybe make it Moon or Mars themed, and then you can
Oh,
control
cool.
robots and have something interactive. More like a lot of people control a lot of robots, but not you control one you control all robots and you make them interact so they can work together on something, but you have a person for each robot, and then the persons will work together on that.
I have one question
kinda
left.
Answered.
How much does a laser upgrade cost on your platform then?
Lasers are very cheap.
Laser.
I have 100 in my bins, and they did cost
Already
me
have them here.
$10.
Already have them here.
Like
no worries.
5-watt diode laser on top of one of the...
There's a pointer, and if it gets notified,
Oh,
that bot is out.
There's a project called letsrobot.tv. It's an online platform. I haven't looked at it for a couple of years, but basically it's an online platform where you can have a robot that you connect to the internet and then let other people take control of it remotely. So that is provide an API so that whatever format your robot takes, you can expose its control system and link it to the letsrobot.tv API, and then people can pull up a webcam and control your robot from anywhere in the world.
I've got to look this up. What?
Me too.
John, what was the website? What was the website?
This is going from memory. I could be wrong, but I think it was called letsrobot.tv, as in LETS robot.tv.
Nice.
Sounds dangerous if people have robots with remote control across the internet wandering around their house.
Yes. Yeah.
Must be different.
Once, and there was someone had made a little wheeled robot that you could drive around. And so obviously the point of view is from the ground looking up. And it was in someone's office, and there were two little kids running around, and there were some balls. And when they noticed that I was driving the robot, they started running around and grabbing the balls and putting them down in front of it so I could push them with the robot. And it was pretty funny.
Cool.
So, Dave, I realize that a lot of people have sort of taken up your time there. bitluni a lot there.
sorry.
Would you like to continue? Sorry, Dave.
There's just one thing that I want to show.
Okay.
I think we all talked enough about the idea that I had, and I'm not really sure when I'm going to find the time to work on this. But maybe I can make this an Element 14 Pro. No, I can't. So I had this PCB design. I made it. Well, it was a joke, of course. There we go. And this is an Atmega 8 dip on a Adafruit Feather form factor board PCB thing. And it's all through-hole parts. And I was kind of, well, is it ironic or sarcastic? Being sarcastic, I think I was sarcastic. But the irony in isn't it ironic is that it's not ironic, but sarcastic? I have no idea. Yeah, and I finally sorted it together. I kind of had it just laying around because someone else actually ordered the boards and put it together before me. And then, the person had sorted it up and tried out VUSB, and it seemed to work okay. And yeah, so I was like, oh, okay, so I don't have to do this. But yeah, it was actually pretty fun to design this and also tease Arturo 182 with it because he hates it. He really hates it.
And you did the full corporate thing, letting somebody else beta test it.
No, that was not an accident. I mean,
can you show it closely?
Just
sorry, let me.
You can show the back side again. Hashtag Twitter. Oh yeah, the beefiest crystal I was able to find is on there. It's actually in the way of putting in the chip correctly. There's an LED, so you can put on blink, and then you call yourself an Arduino hero. as one does. Of course,
I
use
actually
BA.
prefer that one.
You could
Let's
you
use
could take a
B.
10mm LED.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, I was. So this is a normal form factor of the feather, and I was offshooting it a bit because of the USB connector. So I didn't want to put
superior.
extra large parts on there, especially not 10mm LEDs. Oh, now Arturo says he loves it. Okay.
I kind of think that's my favorite USB connector, honestly.
Yeah, I
That's
like
the
it.
best
The one
one.
that feels the most secure when you put it in.
And you can't.
My CPU is
I mean, the
powered with
force-
a USB-B.
The micro B is what you're after. Is that right, Jamie?
No,
Jamie,
no,
I
the
just
full
told
size
you.
one.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, it's USB-B, right? A is the flat one. That was a mistake.
Yep.
Right, but yeah, that's kind of a fun project. I hope it can make the rest work. Probably
THD is
just let it
so
blink.
much nicer.
Yeah, it really isn't. I don't know. I like SMD for the fact that you don't have to turn around the board and have to hold your parts on, because otherwise they would fall out again when you're trying to solder them. There's a lot of things that speak for SMD, and you can always use 1206 if you feel afraid of soldering SMD stuff. So, and Zoic.
Soik.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Dave.
Yay.
Have you got anything else you'd like to show or talk about?
No, I think I'm done here.
Well, that means, John, it was about 6 a.m. when you started. It must be about lunchtime now.
No, it's 7:08 a.m. now.
It's
nearly
almost breakfast time.
Yeah.
Well, John, tell us what you've been up to over the last month.
Over the last month, I've worked on so many different projects that it's hard to pick one. I've got one in mind I'm going to show you in just a second. But before that, because there's been talk about robots and assistive tech earlier, a project I've just been working on, you can see over my shoulder here, this is actually a water cannon. And so I've got a controller here running a joystick.
Oh my God, it looks cool.
So this is like an industrial automation sort of thing. This goes on the back of a water truck, which is used in places like mining and road building. And so this joystick is connected to a controller I designed. It's running an ESP32 and some big motor drivers, and it's got a CAN bus interface on it. So the idea is that this is mounted on the back of the truck, way back up, a long way from the operator, and there is a camera on it so that the operator is sitting in the cab. They've got a screen and the joystick, and it does. So with this, you can see the top part of it is spinning. That's adjusting the spray pattern. So the water cannon can adjust from like a fogger nozzle to right down to a stream of water. And they're used by councils for watering nature strips and dust suppression on road building and in mines and those sorts of things. So that's a commercial project that I'm doing for a customer. But I thought that was cool because people have been talking about robots. So I just got this. There are a couple of different models of the hardware. When I say hardware, I mean the mechanicals, the actual robot. And this one I just got working last night. So that's a very fresh thing. And also James was talking earlier about the Xbox Adaptive Controller. This is a project that I did a little while ago, directly related to that. I've got an Xbox Adaptive Controller here as well. So I spend a couple of days a week working with a good friend of mine who has Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And so he's reliant on technology to be able to do anything. He can't physically move or do anything much himself. So this is a project I worked on with him, which is a fully open source version of the Xbox Adaptive Controller. It's got 8 inputs instead of the 19 or whatever it is that the Adaptive Controller does. And it's got an ATmega32U4 on it, so it does HID for input emulation. And it can pretend to be a number of different devices. With the Xbox Adaptive Controller, it basically acts as a game controller. With this, we can send mouse events, keyboard events, whatever you want to do with it based on the inputs. And that's why I happen to have things like this foot switch just sitting around. So I've got a wide variety of assistive tech input devices here that can plug into this and then activate events on the computer. And so that's a bare one. This is the same thing, just in a 3D printed enclosure. It's got a little screen on it that shows you what events it's sending. It's got USB-C on it, and it's also got audible feedback that you can turn on and off, so you can tell if an event has been sent. So yeah, a lot of what I've been doing over the last couple of years has been related to assistive technology. So for many, many years now, I've been doing home automation related things, and it's the last really 2.5 years that I've taken a bit of a turn, and instead of doing home automation for like toys for rich people, it's using home automation technology and applying it to help people who need it to do day-to-day tasks. So yeah, that's been a really rewarding thing. So the specific project that I wanted to talk about today is something that's been ongoing for a little while. And this is, even though this looks like a horrible hot glue prototype, this is actually our 4th version of it. This is a thing called
a zero. It looks great to me.
It's perfect. Look, there's literal hot glue on there. So this is a zero deflection joystick. Now, for many people who have physical disabilities, there are a variety of different issues in terms of interacting with computers. The obvious one is lack of strength. If someone has something like muscular dystrophy, they no longer have the strength to move a joystick. So something like this joystick, it's got a lot of deflection, and it takes a fair bit of strength to make it move. So Chris, for example, wouldn't be able to do that. For reference, his total range of motion is at his fingertips. He has approximately 10 millimeters of movement, and he can only apply a few grams of force, essentially. So what we do is, with this, is it acts as a joystick, but it's made out of 2 load cells. So these are 300 gram rated load cells, aligned 90 degrees, rotated to each other. I'm not sure if I can get good focus on this, but there's a little machined base here, which is, it's got an 8 millimeter rod. This is stuck into a piece of wood just because I've been using it for testing, but the 8 millimeter rod is a standard for mounting devices on wheelchairs. There are little universal brackets that will grasp the 8 millimeter rod and hold it. You can position it exactly where you want it to be, anywhere on the chair. And this is a 3D printed top, which is in TPU, so it's like rubber. So this is a rubberized sort of surface. And then in this particular case, we've got a Arduino Xiao, which is a SAMD21 baseboard. There are a couple of amplifiers for the load cells and the USB-C interface. So what we can do is plug this into a computer, and at the moment what it's doing is emulating a mouse. So by using this joystick, you can move the mouse around on the screen. But the critical point here is that the joystick doesn't move. That's why it's called a zero deflection joystick. With a normal joystick, how far you move it is considered to be, what input you want to send. With this, the joystick doesn't move. So someone with no mobility at the end of their fingers can just touch it, and all they have to do is apply force in different directions. And the amount of force that's applied is then considered to be a virtual deflection of the joystick. So this gives people with issues like Duchenne muscular dystrophy the ability to interact with a computer in a way that they couldn't normally do.
You know, when looking at that, my first thought was those. So at my work, they've got a Haas CNC machine, and it's got this probe that comes down to find out where it is, and it sort of just pushes up against something. So it sort of looks a bit like that with the bit on the end, but that obviously it does move when it does it. But yours is kind of like, yeah, exactly like that. But yours is absolutely rigid, and so it's a resistive.
Yes.
Is it resistive when they move?
It doesn't move at all. So that's, well, technically it does, but it is so small that you couldn't physically tell. So these load cells are made out of aluminium. In fact, I've got a few somewhere around. So these load cells are the same device as you would find in something like a set of kitchen scales or bathroom scales. And typically the way they work is that they're set up in a bridge where you have one end clamped and the other end you apply force onto it. And then the aluminium deforms very, very slightly. And there are sensors on the top and the bottom. Their resistance changes as the aluminium deforms. But the actual deformation is so small that you couldn't physically see it happening. And what we've done, well, what you can see here is two load cells that have just been glued together at a 90-degree angle. And this is another one that we made. So this is a custom machined load cell. It's actually a dual load cell. You can see that it's got one axis going in that direction and you turn it around, and there's another axis going in the opposite direction. So normal load cells are only in one dimension. This is a two-dimensional load cell. And so this was our third prototype. This worked okay. So that was all custom machined. But then the issues of things like bonding the strain gauges onto the aluminium, there is a lot of work that goes into that, and you've got to use the right type of glue, which is typically a heat bonded glue, and tuning the structure to get the sensitivity just right is quite hard. So we might come back to that. But in the meantime, what we've gone back to is using two commercial load cells and then machining them so that they interlock and making a mounting base for it. And this is actually working really surprisingly well. It's very sensitive. We're just barely touching the end of the joystick. The mouse, moves really nice and it's really smooth. So that project is something that we've just been working on. Well, we've been working on it for a while now, but it's in the last 3 weeks or so we've been putting a lot of time into that one. And the ultimate objective is to replace the joystick on Chris's wheelchair with this joystick. The one he uses now is called a Hall effect joystick, and it has fairly small deflection, so it doesn't need him to move the joystick a long distance. But the problem is the resolution on it is very, very poor, and we're hoping that this one will perform a bit better.
So the Hall effect one, that will be magnets moving, so there's not a lot of resistance on that joystick.
Exactly.
It's basically nothing or half or full, so he's probably not got a lot of speed range there or
that's
fine
right.
movement. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. But the other big advantage, of course, is that, well, firstly, those Hall effect joysticks cost about $2,500, and this one we've made, well, what you can see here, it looks ugly, but it fully works. If I plug this into my computer now, it'd be a mouse. And this was made for under $20 of parts. So yeah, it'll be a lot cheaper. Hopefully it'll work better. And also it can do things that the Hall effect joystick can't, because that joystick will only interface with a specific type of wheelchair controller. With this one, we can plug it into a computer and it can be a game controller. We can use it for doing things like flying drones. We can send that signal to other devices. So we've already done that using FlySky transmitters. We've got a modified FlySky transmitter with a CAN bus interface on it. And so we can use that to fly aircraft using first-person view, using our input devices like this one.
Nice.
I love that. Also, you've got so many options in terms of size as well, haven't you? So it doesn't have to stay that size. It can be a lot bigger if you need it to be. It could even be a bit smaller. I imagine there is a limitation in terms of how small you can make it, but the cost of joysticks as they get larger is huge. Like that one you showed us, the industrial control unit you've got there is probably kind of expensive.
Yeah, these things are hundreds of dollars. Well, yeah, and this one's IP67 rated or something, so you could throw this into a tub of water and it wouldn't really care. But
that's why they use the box. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you could put something instead of on a joystick on a pad, so that if you needed to use your head to control it, it could be that. I love that you could just slot something over the top of that joystick that you've already made, and that could be the control surface, couldn't it? That's
Exactly. Yeah. And so these particular load cells that we're using are 300 gram full rated. We could use 100 gram load cells as well, but we found that 300 gram is sensitive enough that it takes very light touch to move it. But of course, if you wanted to make something that was tougher, something that was more like this for use in an industrial situation where someone's wearing gloves and they're in a noisy, dirty environment, they want to just grab it and move the joystick, then we could use bigger load cells. It's just swap out the load cells and you can make something with a totally different force range. Right now, somewhere on an aeroplane between China and Australia, are PCBs that will mount vertically in here, and it will take what's currently on this separate thing and put it all onto a custom board. So it incorporates the 2 amplifiers for the 2 load cells and an AT-tiny, so we can put an I2C interface on it. So what we're doing is breaking this down into subsystems. So the joystick will be a self-contained unit with an I2C interface, and then that will connect out to whatever other device we want to use for interface purposes.
That's cool. What have been the challenges so far then that you've found the most difficult with that?
A couple of things. It's been really interesting from a mechanical standpoint. So Chris's stepfather, Peter, is an expert at CNC machining. His whole life has been building race cars, like Formula One cars and V8 race cars and that sort of thing. So he's the one that did the custom machining. He's got a full machine shop in his garage, in his shed at home.
Oh, that's great. Oh, yeah, got someone from Formula One to knock it up. That's crazy.
So he can do all the custom fabrication. So brackets, things like this. He custom machined this because we came up with the idea of we needed a mounting bracket. So we'll just machine it. And so it's been really, really interesting learning about some of that process as well. I've been watching over his shoulder as he's been running the lathe and seeing how it all comes together. And part of it is, the other challenge has been from the software side. One thing that I did in this project for the first time is that we began this using an ATmega32U4 because we had a Leonardo connected doing our translation. And then we switched over to the SAMD21, which can also do HID emulation, but they have different libraries available for them and they're not necessarily compatible. So one of the things that I did in the source code for this, which is on GitHub somewhere already, is I put compile time flags in it so that if you're compiling this with the Arduino IDE, it compiles in different libraries and it uses different functions to do the HID emulation depending on what your target platform is. So you don't need to say, enable this library and disable this one. It's all taken care of at compile time automatically. So you can take the exact same source code, compile it for a different target, and it compiles in a totally different way. So yeah, that was a really interesting little thing to figure out as well.
That's very cool. Has anyone got any questions for Jon?
No, I'm done. Hooray!
I've got one last question. When are you hoping to have it finished by?
Well, with this,
I hate asking that.
I know. With this, we want to get this onto. Well, Chris has a spare chair, and we want to get it onto that probably within the next week or two. One of the issues is the danger of dealing with this sort of thing. Physically moving a chair, like the electric wheelchairs so Chris had a twin brother who passed away about 2 years ago. And originally I was working with Chris's brother, Nick, on a few projects, and they had identical wheelchairs. So what we have now is Nick's wheelchair, which has been sitting in the shed unused for the last 2 years. But what that's given us is a platform that we can use for experimentation, which is really rare because these wheelchairs cost over $40,000 each. And Chris obviously needs his chair constantly day to day, but we can use Nick's chair as a test platform. But the danger of electric wheelchairs is that they are very powerful mobile robots. The chair weighs well over 200 kilos. I think it's about 240 kilos with nobody in it. And it's got a huge battery pack, big motors. If you run it into, like, it'll take plaster off the wall if you run into it. You certainly don't want to have it run away from you. So from a control system perspective, it's quite dangerous. And doing any testing with someone sitting in the chair, that's really dangerous. So
How fast can it go?
Remote control with FPV goggles, those kind of ones you do for drones?
Yes, well, that's one of our other projects. I've got so many related projects I could go on for ages. I won't. But one of the other projects, another PCB which should be on that same flight from China right now, is an I2C interface that plugs into the control system of an existing wheelchair controller and allows us to take control of it. And so part of it is that we want to be able to do things like self-driving. So we've also built our own wheelchair controller. That's a whole other thing entirely. So we've got a wheelchair set up with a Raspberry Pi on it and our own wheelchair controller. So we've got our own motor controller, and we can control it remotely using an Xbox controller using Bluetooth. So we already have remote control of the chair, and we want to add self-driving so that we can do things like, say, take me to the kitchen and just have the chair take you there. You shouldn't have to navigate around through the house and avoid obstacles. The chair should take you to your destination.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I suppose mobility isn't always the only issue someone's facing. It could also be a visual impairment as well. So the chair could sense objects and whatever and move you around.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, there's so much you can do. Basically, it's like sticking a Tesla vision system into a chair would be the ideal, wouldn't it? That would be great.
Yeah. Well, we already have LiDAR, which we've been experimenting with. So we can do a bit of SLAM sort of stuff.
All right. So are you gonna try and do, like, rig up a chair yourself just to see how the stick works, or does it have to go specifically into the drive system of this specific chair?
We're going to use it on the test chair initially, and we have a little thing set up where we can use the footrest of the chair to lift the wheels off the ground. So we put it into a mode where it can't move. It just spins its wheels and doesn't go anywhere. It's like putting it up on blocks.
That's cool. All right. Thank you very much, John. Have you got anything else you want to show or talk about?
I could talk for hours, but I'm not going to.
I know you can. I've seen your streams before. We were hoping this might have tired you out.
Can you scratch your back with the robot arm from there?
Ooh, I probably could.
That was my first thought when I saw it moving, and you,
It's actually a bit of a distance behind me. There's a depth. I can't quite touch it.
Oh, okay.
There's a depth of field thing with the camera. It's further away than it looks.
It's not that big.
It's bigger than it looks.
I've got to say, the sound of the servos on that thing are great. When you move that joystick, it's like the sound of robots in my head. That is exactly what robots sound like. I love it.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, John. There were lots of people talking in the chat, so I missed some of the things. And then when the questions came through, it wasn't relevant at the time. But I'm sure you can have a little read back. But everyone was very positive. So, I might skip myself because I haven't really made an awful lot. I made a pride flag PCB, which is situated just behind me. That was a bit of an experiment into curing a solder mask. I bought myself so I had a light. Oh, here it is. A money checker light. It's not plugged in, so I can't show you the glow. It was crap. Everyone told me it was rubbish. 4 watts is not enough to do solder masks. So I bought myself a torch. This is the one that Adafruit used in their solder mask curing video. It's exactly the same thing. Like, it looks super cool. It's very, very bright. I don't know if this is dangerous. Maybe it's dangerous. Is it?
Don't. You're killing yourselves with that.
We had the same one to cure resin for experiments when I worked at a 3D filament company. Don't look into that.
It's all right. I was only doing it as a joke. The light. I've got some polycarbonate glasses for using this generally. They're over there. But this thing is so bright. It's ridiculous. And honestly, don't look at your carpet or your bathroom with this because it looks horrible. Anyway,
we'll
so
never go in there again.
I'm gonna try that out. I'm gonna give up on doing the solder mask for the Pride Flag PCB because it's done, and I don't intend to make a load of them. It's just like a silly little project, but it's a symbol, isn't it? And that's what it's all about. So it was fun to make, and I asked a lot of PCB companies if they would help me make it, because honestly, ordering that many PCBs is kind of expensive. It's not the size, it's just a number of different colors. So it came to about $100 and something in total for the PCBs for that. And I needed to paint some of them anyway. So really I ended up with a lot, but it was, so PCBWay made it. No one else agreed to do it. PCBWay, I told them from the start, I said, look, this is going to be a Pride Flag. You're going to be sponsoring. And I was a bit worried that the politics in China would mean that wasn't really possible. But they were very happy to do it. So
so they knew what it was.
Yeah, they knew what it was. I sent them a picture of a Pride flag in the email to say, this is what I'm building. And then there were several companies said, sorry, we can't help you with that. As I said, can you help me make orange solder mask because it's not available? Turns out, yeah, JCB, PCBWay's solder mask, the yellow one, is actually really orange. So I had to make a lighter yellow. And so I did that with the yellow solder mask mechanic PCB UV curing solder mask. And it all turned out okay. So here's one of come on now, there we go. So this is the actual yellow solder mask. I didn't end up using this because it doesn't look very nice, really. So got rid of that and just painted it with acrylic, and that worked just fine. So sometimes you don't need to go for exactly what they have on PCBs, but this has UV solder mask on it. It looks all right. And I made
one question. What triggered me when I watched your video is that the last LED is like the gap between is slightly bigger than the other ones. Is this intentional, or is there a reason for that? Or
Looney, I don't think you can talk about being triggered by minor things like that.
Troll.
But I was.
So I'm not programmed to notice stuff like that. So I didn't see it. And so no, I didn't even notice it, honestly.
What? Really?
Yep. So
it's like one LED
over here, the bit's longer, apparently.
No, on the other side.
No, it's like
oh, look, now you can see where it's all horrible and everything, but you can actually see the resistor over here is, I can't point to it, over there are closer to the pads than the ones over here. So that is the difference. No, I didn't notice. Honestly, until you just mentioned it, I thought that was fine.
Oh, sorry,
It's not.
You've ruined it, Looney.
Yeah, it's a German piece in bitluni.
No, I'm fine. So yeah, I've been thinking about making that for about, I don't know, a year and a half, and it was just, I was like trying to find companies that did orange solder mask. Ragworm is the only one that I could find in there in the EU, but it would have cost me about $90 for 3 of those little strips. They're very expensive. So I was just like, no, I won't do that. And so, yeah, I just experimented lots of different colors. So I've got like what are these called? You get them in paint shops, don't you, where you can see the color card and you see which color you want to pick, basically like that. Yeah, swatches. Yes, thank you. So I just did that, and it worked out. So I was really pleased. But there's not a lot to it, not technically at least. It was just a bit of a learning experience in terms of making a solder mask and discovering what my audience would put up with in their morality. Also,
David, a quick question before you move on from that previous one. So you've done that as separate strips. How practical do you think it would be to apply multiple colors of solder mask to a single PCB? I
actually think it would be really easy after dealing with that UV solder mask, and it's really easy to mix. It mixes just like paint. So I bought red, white, and the yellow, and so I could make an orange with red and yellow, or I could make the yellow lighter with a bit of white. And I can also make pink now, which is going to be ace. I'm going to give pink a go with the red and the white. So yeah, if you can get all the colors, and it was so easy just to paint on with a paintbrush. And now that I've got a better light, I think it would be so much easier to cure.
The curing will be better.
Yeah, this Steve from SDG Electronics dropped a comment on my video. And I think we had a little convo in the comments, and I think part of what we realized was that if you lay it on too thick, it will never penetrate to that bottom layer that's sitting on the PCB. You'll always just cure the top layer, it goes basically opaque, and then it never gets through. So multiple thin layers is probably the way to go in terms of doing it. I don't know how they do it in the factory.
What's the viscosity?
I probably should have looked that up. It's kind of just like, it's a little bit thinner than acrylic paint. So I'd say half the thickness of an acrylic paint.
I'm wondering if you could thin it down a little bit and maybe get an inkjet printhead to deposit it.
I think someone said something about that in the comments. You might be able to do it. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty stable when there's no UV around. So you could probably just stick it in the printhead and it might be fine. But that would come out really thin though, wouldn't it? So you'd have to really build up layer upon layer to get that looking kind of like, to get it looking like that kind of a color. It would, if it was on bare copper or even on white, actually, a thin layer doesn't look. Oh, it's not gonna. A thin layer doesn't look very colorful. How do I do this? Oh yeah, that's the one. So you can see thin layers. You'd need to build up a few, and also printing onto a PCB is hard. That's it. Someone mentioned they had a CD printer, so their printer could take CDs, and that's not far off the thickness of a PCB. I mean, these are the standard 1.6. I'm sure you could go down to like 0.6 or whatever. So yeah, that was a project. It was a bit of a kind of like a want. So I wanted that for a long time. I wanted to be able to do it, and also it's a bit of it was topical at the time. I guess there's a lot of intolerance in the world. And I wish there wasn't, and I wish there was no need for the flags, and I wish there was no need for kind of anything like that. But so yeah, that's besides the point of this MakerCast. The other thing I made was this, which is, I mean, everyone watching this knows all of this because they watch this trash channel all the time. But it is a clock. I call it a milliseconds clock. Someone's told me it's not a milliseconds clock because I removed the last digit over here. So if I just reset the clock, it is meant to be a stopwatch / clock. So essentially it's counting the milliseconds down here. So the hundreds of milliseconds and then the tens of seconds. So centisecond clock, someone said. AZ's already saying, look, it's not a milliseconds clock. Yes, I know. It sounds better. And so we're counting like very small fractions of a second there. And so you could use it as a stopwatch, but it's also a clock. So all of the circuitry on the back, this is an ugly prototype. Absolutely judge me. That's fine. But
it's beautiful.
That's not ugly at all. I love that. I really like the way you mount those displays through.
Oh, look at those bodges. That's the good stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are some diodes, because it turns out I didn't do some diode steering with the reset lines. So that's what they're there for. I also forgot to connect a segment. So that's what, I don't know where my hand is. That's what this black wire over here is for. But I absolutely love the way the displays on the back, they kind of look like the Predator numbers that he's got on his old, on his wrist thing when the bomb's about to go off. And that's kind of what it looks like. So yeah, it's a fun project to make because it's purely CMOS based. So there's no microcontroller here. It's just running off CMOS logic. The touch stuff isn't, well, there's a little bit of CMOS in there, but the touch stuff is just besides the point. It could be a button. So it's not really about how it functions, but everything else is CMOS based. So it's a lot of fun to build. And it was kind of expensive because the boards are the biggest boards I've ever produced. Like I can see James over there going, whatever. Yeah, tiny boards. James has got like boards like this big, are huge. But this is the biggest board that I've ever made. And so for me, these were like £35 for 10 or something, which seemed like a lot of money to me from a cheap board manufacturer. Because my boards are usually 50 by 50. They're not big. And it came out looking pretty sweet. Like the LED display sort of put in from the reverse, pushed through, and sitting almost flat. If I could get a PCB that was double the thickness, or I could overlay another one, then I would. And I probably can actually, because I've got loads of spare ones lying around. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and I managed to do it on some streams. In fact, I almost exclusively worked on the thing during live streams, which meant it turned what probably would have been an hour and a half's work into about 6 or 7 hours worth of streaming. Honestly, there was a lot of that, and everyone here in the comments was very, very helpful and encouraging. And even in one stream, when it all went wrong and I got a little bit upset about it, genuinely was, when it didn't work, people were very kind. So yeah,
I love
it was a very fun project to work on.
Yeah, I love the aesthetic and the clean look on the front of it. What it reminds me of are those electronic clapboards used in movie production, how it's got the timer on the screen so that it can be synchronized to the camera later.
Oh my God, I hadn't even thought about that. So in my real life, in my work, I'm a photographer, videographer, so I do filming, and it didn't remotely cross my mind that I could use it for that. So we don't have a digital one. We just have a manual clapper for work, but I could use that. That's a good idea.
If you just add the clapper and have the milliseconds shown, or the seconds shown for the movie that is now starting when you do the clap, that would save you $200. Because that is what the commercial one costs, and that doesn't sync. That's just showing a time code.
Wow. I mean, I'm totally bored of this now, by the way. So I'm probably not going to do any more development on it. I've finished the PCB, and I don't know when I'm going to order it because all the parts are super expensive. Like, I wouldn't have thought these would be really pricey, but SMD LEDs in the right color that you want are like 80 pence each for these amber ones. And then if I wanted the yellow ones, it was almost £1. So that's £8 per board. And that's not counting the 59 pence each for the CD4026s in a SMD format. Yeah, it's all very expensive. So I'll make a short run of them, but I'm not going to plan. I can't make any money, basically. I'll just break even. But I know some people really want one, so I'll do something like that.
I think you should put a bit of your own branding on it. I think it's a really nice looking thing. I'd love to have one of those sitting on the shelf up near me. Well,
this one might be going spare, so if you want one with loads of bodges all over it, we'll see. Maybe. All right, well, I think that's, someone said crap clack. No, I can't even speak. The crap clap. I'm trying to break this crap moniker that I've sort of adopted. I'm trying not to have that for everything now because it's too easy to adopt and lower expectations for any project that I do.
Yeah, Simone Gyach did that, so you can do it too. She got rid of the shitty robots thing.
And now she does other things. Yeah.
She's just a queen now, so. I have a question about the flags, though.
Okay.
You mentioned something in Discord, and I was wondering if there's any updates on the things you also get from PCBWay, and if you have any idea, if you're doing it or not.
I contacted all these PCB companies and said, hey, I want to make an LGBTQ plus flag. And I said, look, this is what it is, and sent them a picture. So I think it's fairly universally, worldwide recognized as, I mean, our simplest terms, a gay flag, basically. So I sent that around, and lots of people said no. But they said no for technical reasons, whatever, maybe. And I'm sure that is the case. But PCBWay said, yeah, we'd love to help you out. But they put no stipulations on the project at all. I don't know whether that was they forgot to say, yes, you must put our URL in the video, or please make sure you mention our manufacturing capabilities. They didn't say a thing. And I was like, okay. They just literally paid. They made me upload all the stuff to the PCB website, and then they just paid for it and sent it. And so I thought, oh, okay, great. They've not told me I have to say anything. So in my video, I said, yeah, they're the same as any other fab you go to. They're basically the same as JLC PCB. JLC PCB are probably cheaper, but they at least agreed to make a gay flag, right? So
they will also make pride flags for you.
Yeah, but that is the best thing I can say about PCBWay. They're more expensive than the competition, but they agreed to make a pride flag for nothing. So anyway, turns out I got an order confirmation email the other day from PCBWay, and I've not ordered anything at all. And in this order, I went on their website, logged in, and they've made an order for me and shipped it out without consulting me, which is nuts, right? So completely unsolicited. They've sent, like, if you're watching PCBWay, which you won't be, but don't worry, I'm not mad. But it is crazy that someone would do that and send something out without asking. But anyway, in that order is every color of PCB that they do, but in their PCB ruler with PCBWay branding on. And essentially, this is every color that they do in a sort of a ruler format. So I'm kind of worried that they're going to say, can you make a pride flag out of our PCB rulers so that they're branded or something? I do not know what they're going to say, but they might. I don't know. And a T-shirt that I've never.
I don't think so. They just sent the merchandise. They think they just simply think that would fit you, or don't know, your topic or anything. I don't think they expect.
I think it's
anything.
very nice, but it's kind of insane that you wouldn't email first or anything. In fact, also they never agreed.
You should inform people that you're going to send something. I had stuff sent to me from some Chinese company, and then I ended up paying 150 euros in tax and import duties for that. And that I didn't ask for that stuff, so that was pretty nice, I guess. So always better to inform people beforehand.
Yeah, I agree. Brian thinks I'm the worst sponsoree ever. Probably because what I'm saying about PCBWay, but I mean, it is true, isn't it? There's very little difference between JLC PCB and PCBWay in terms of their actual capabilities and the qualities of the board. I've used both, I've paid for both, and I haven't noticed anything. JLC PCB are slightly slower at delivering in my experience, but that's about it for all I can tell. Anyway, on that, I'm never getting sponsored note again, which is fine. I've never actually been sponsored. They've only ever sent me a free PCB, so not sure if that's sponsorship or just free stuff. I don't know. I suppose sponsorship is just free money, isn't it? I guess. Maybe. All right, I think that we're pretty much at the end of the MakerCast, which usually was meant to be an hour. We're at now an hour and 49 minutes. So it's one of those ones that's dragged on a little bit. And I blame Looney, as I do every MakerCast.
Why?
So everyone would like to turn around and stare at him a little bit.
Yeah.
I just wanted to prolong this another 10 minutes, and I turn 41 on stream.
Yeah.
Do you turn 41 tomorrow?
Yeah.
We have 10 minutes.
Yeah. In 10 minutes. In 10 minutes,
yeah.
I turn at least where I live. So.
So we've got to wait around for another 10 minutes.
No.
Everyone raise a glass.
We're definitely stopping 1 minute before. Just to end the stream.
Bye.
Awkward silence.
So that's why
for
you're
10
sitting
minutes.
there. Just sitting there smiling.
You need to make up a quiz right now so we can fill 10 minutes.
I don't know if I can.
No, it's fine. We can just.
What was the first song played in space?
Major Tom.
I assume you
I might
mean
have done this quiz before.
performed live, not just played as a recording.
Oh yeah.
No, I think it's played as a recording. I can't remember. That's too much distinction.
I don't know.
I think it's played as a recording.
Something classic. Right off the Walkers.
Oh no.
It is classic.
Maybe it's the thing that they played in Space Odyssey.
Oh, what am I doing?
Was it Mozart or something?
No, it was
What's
actually,
the venue?
I believe it was Jingle Bells. In fact, I'm not even kidding. Electron Ash has already put it in here. He's obviously Googled it. But yeah, it was Jingle Bells, which you think is a Christmas song, but it's also not. It's a Thanksgiving song. It was.
Thanksgiving
I know
is
it's
not
strange,
real.
isn't it?
Isn't that even a real holiday?
Fun it is to ride in the horse open sleigh.
Hey.
Apparently it's not a Christmas song, so I've read. But yeah, it was first played on the December the 16th, 1965 in Gemini 6. So there you go. There's a fact for you. How am I going to fill up the rest of this 10 minutes?
No, it's.
How about someone else?
We
comes up
don't
with a
need to
stage?
fill it up. It's okay.
No, but why would you say it, Bitluni? And now we all seem like the end soon.
Does anyone in the chat
Monster.
maybe have
Disgusting.
questions for us?
Monster.
Just wanted to go sleep.
What? No, we're gonna stick around here. Anyone a question? Come on. Did Robin lay an egg or did he run away? Oh no, that's isn't that YouTube video stuff thing?
No, that's a Simpsons song that Bart sings.
Yeah, but
His
there are
Jingle
different
Bells
versions.
version. And depending on when you watch the episodes, you have a different rendition in your head.
Yeah, three of us can't really talk about this because we never sang it that way. Or like the song.
Dave Darko, are you
I'm
drinking
sorry.
from a test tube? What was that in your hand? It looks like a test tube, like you're in a science lab.
No, it's just a weird shot glass and it's way too full, but I wanted to have something visible to say cheers in.
I
need to grab a beer or something.
Grab something to
anything.
drink now.
Yeah, the only
that's
thing
not
there is
I have
whiskey
here
left.
is like some nail polish.
Bitluni drinks nail polish as usual, and I'm drinking Schirka Feuerstein, which is something like Jägermeister, but different. Comes from the central Germany parts, the Harz. It's very nice.
I need beer or something.
It's a bit too
Which
much.
Harz?
Tom Scott.
It's 1, 2, 3, or 4.
I will grab a beer. I'm showing too much
we
of
get
my
to see
home.
Bitluni's house.
No.
It's very dark in your house,
Turned
Bitluni.
into an impromptu birthday party. When he said,
Sorry?
I don't have any presents. Aw. Well, technically, I showed your project, so you might get some sales out of this.
I have beer.
Nice.
hooray!
Or at least Radler. So that's awkward. So, no quiz?
Yeah, Mark, email me.
I have something to say. I bought a computer and put it together, and I'm streaming from it right now, and it has a completely closed off case and a graphics card with RGB lights and RAM with RGB lights. I hate RGB lights on those parts. Why do you even do that?
I also hate RGB lights, so mine is completely black, inside out, and in the soul.
It's glowing for nothing in there. I'm too lazy to find out how to turn off the RGB lights in my computer, so I'm just leaving it in there, consuming power.
Just
for
take
no
off
one.
the cover, get some black spray paint, spray around the inside of it.
That's a good idea.
Desolder
Perfectly
then.
sufficient.
Opaque as well.
I'm gonna put a
Salvage
camera
them for
inside.
PCBs. Salvage them and reuse them and make a video about that.
Sure.
Why not?
So long as Elephant 19 pays for it. Chris Stanton was here and asked a question. I hope I was answering it at one point. Oh, let's
Hey, we have
see.
already triggered the Mac people. Now we can trigger the
We
PC
did?
people. Yeah, I've built
How
a
did
cheese grater. Do you remember that?
Oh,
got
you
hate
mean
mails from Mac blogs.
LM19.
So now you can just rape some computer hardware and get the PC guys triggered.
It would only be Linus from Tech Tips. He likes RGB LEDs.
The only person in the world.
Yeah, and he promotes it. He also wears sandals, which is okay, I guess.
Yeah, but not with
Got an
socks.
RGB thing in it. I hate it.
He wears sandals with socks. That's a crime.
Isn't he working on RGB sandals? I heard something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There was a
He
rumor.
mentioned that lately, and I thought that's a super
believe
simple project. You can make this like within a day, and send him like an ESP 8266 or something that he can control with Wi-Fi
Like-
or something.
Yeah, over web interface.
Just make it and send him the link and a link to your PayPal account.
I could
With
just
3 more
send him.
minutes. Linus is totally
I would
right.
think
We're not.
RGB flip-flops that change color with every step. That would be cool.
Yeah,
Or
Paul Taggart is saying that sandals and socks each on their own are okay, but together they are not. I mean, it's pretty German to do something like that. I'm not doing it, but I mean, here it's a free country, so if people want to do that,
You're in a free
we're not going to kick them out. Well, to wear socks and sandals, that's very German. Also wear masks.
Oh yes, the masks. We stopped wearing masks, and now everything is going to be bad again. So start wearing your mask again.
So, Looney, we must be getting very close to your birthday time now. What time is it that we're...
it's 2 minutes more. David, I'm so sorry.
Why apologize? You basically
You must be so
every live
tired.
stream.
You
Every
want us.
live stream, you derail it, Looney. There's always something. Your camera's rubbish. You've got the stream playing in another tab, or you're making
Not
noise.
this time. I don't have tabs this time. But actually, I wanted to join this stream or the preparation for the stream 1 hour early this time. And it simply didn't work. None of the... I think it must be a Windows update or something, or some setting, since I didn't change anything on that. So permissions were okay for the browsers, and simply the camera didn't work. None of the cameras worked on my PC. And on my old laptop, they stopped working after a minute. I have no clue what's going on there, but none of the browsers, even Edge, didn't work.
Yeah.
Easy fix. Stop using Windows.
Windows.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
We have the same problem
ESP32
with
cam.
Windows updates.
Yeah.
Windows
ESP32
updates and webcams
cam,
don't like each other.
Microsoft Basic, whatever. And what else do you need?
Yeah, whatever. Now I tried this mobile solution here.
So what we need
Totally
is
working.
now is a countdown. It should be counting down to...
Oh no.
20 seconds.
Yeah.
15 seconds.
We might have a delay here, but it sounded like
It's being...
9, 8,
No,
7,
40,
6,
41.
5,
No.
4, 3, 2, 1. Yay! Happy birthday!
Cheers, mate.
Can we sing some
Thank you
songs?
very much.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday in a very delayed way. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, look at
Arturo
this.
Bontas.
The chat is going apeshit.
Yay! We should
Oh,
celebrate
thank you,
birthdays
guys.
more often. We get money. Woo! Woo!
Thing is, you think 40 is going to be bad, but 41's when it really hits you.
Yeah, it's 40.
What
It's
even is
41 now. 42. I will celebrate 42 actually,
Oh, yeah.
but not 41. 41 is not. Doesn't do
We need
anything.
to
We
throw
don't
a towel
talk about
party at
41 anymore.
42.
Only celebrate.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, guys. I'm not very able to read the chat or answer the chat because I'm only on my phone.
You
But
don't see it.
thank you. I read it. I can read it. I can at least read it. Thank you very much.
Happy birthday.
So
I probably shouldn't put things up on the screen that I can't read. What does that say?
oh, what?
That's
something-
probably nothing nice.
Viertelstagen. Gratis.
Viertelstagen.
Gratis bei Viertelstagen.
Thanks.
Gratis.
Yeah, I am.
No.
Now you can go to
Do
the
I look
bar.
like 41? Please tell me I look like 39.
I think you look younger than me.
No.
It's very hard.
Put you much
What's
younger.
41 in hex? Is that less than 41?
Is David older than me?
I
We
am
had that
7
recently.
years old.
17
You
years?
37.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then you're older.
Ha! Old fogies.
What? You're the chicken,
Oh,
right?
perfect.
I'm happy being with this group here, like all of these guys. And no,
Oh, Arturo has
this square over here is a lot older.
So 29 is 41 in hex. So you're
Oh,
happy?
yes,
Hex
jackpot.
29.
You haven't hit
And the
30.
next birthday will be like 20A. 2A.
Happy 2A.
Woo.
I'm not 25, by the way.
Yeah, everybody
Right.
sees that.
I'm a couple of weeks away from turning 50, so I think you're all.
Oh, really?
What? Really?
Yeah.
No way.
You look like 29.
Hardly.
In hex.
I'm 22 in Hex. What? I never noticed that. I like the
Age
22.
is just a number, everyone.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to end this stream now because it's been going on for 2 hours, which is incredible.
Oh, thank you. Thank you,
I've had a lot
David.
of fun. Thank you very much, everyone in chat. It's really nice to have you here and interacting with us. And thank you to Jon, Dave, Darko, Clem, James, and bitluni for joining us today. It has been a blast. Even if I think Clem and Dave might beat each other to death one day when doing a project together, but they have a lot of fun, I'm sure. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
And thanks
Bye.
for
Thanks for the wishes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.